restoring Illinois to greatness. This is Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Policy Institute and hosted by AM 560's Dan Proft.
Dan Proft back with Michael Lucci, Vice President of Policy at the Illinois Policy Institute. And Michael, reports out the first part of this year, Illinois shed another 15,000 manufacturing jobs last year, which is rather devastating news for a state where the manufacturing sector had been one of the real wealth-creating sectors, along with agribusiness, and the two are interlinked in many respects. And in addition to that, and I guess that's, I don't know, it's a bit of a chicken and egg discussion, we continue to see the outmigration of population from Illinois to just about anywhere else.
That's right. We're seeing people move across the border, and sometimes it's for cost of living. Sometimes it is very directly for jobs, and we are seeing manufacturers specifically hop that border into Indiana, where they open up and expand operations on that side of the border rather than staying in business in Illinois. And what this has led to, actually, it was a very interesting thing that we found, is that Pennsylvania is actually on pace to pass Illinois as the fifth largest state in the country by the next census in 2020. So at the current growth rates of the two states, Pennsylvania could be the fifth largest state by 2020. And what's really interesting about that is that Pennsylvania is not growing very quickly in terms of population. The problem is that Illinois is shrinking because we have so much outmigration to other states that we lose more people to other states than we gain from, having births in the state of Illinois. So this is a turning point in my mind where if you're actually going to give up that position of fifth largest state, at least you should give it up to a state that's growing quickly. Pennsylvania's not growing quickly. They're just not shrinking. Well,
and Chicago, too, thinking about the biggest cities in the country, Chicago at its lowest population level since 1920, surpassed by Houston Houston now the third largest city, or just about the third largest city in the country. Chicago dropping down those ranks as well. And, it's one of these things, is there any bigger indictment of the governance of a major urban center like Chicago or a major state like Illinois, the transportation hub of the Midwest, for people to say, I just can't make it make sense. Even if I want to be here, I can't make it make sense to be here anymore.
Well, it is, I think, the biggest indictment when people vote with their feet, as the economist Milton Friedman used to say. And it actually reminds me of other cases where, people who lived in mainland China fled into Hong Kong as communism was coming into China. Same thing happened in the Koreas. They fled into the part where there's more freedom. Now,
that's interesting to compare us to China and North Vietnam. Those are not favorable comparisons.
We're not quite there to full communism because we're in a country that is still relatively very free compared to the rest of the world. So, the communism joke aside, you see the same effect, though. You see people moving towards freedom. They might not know that's why they're doing it. They might not know that's why there are the jobs in Texas and Tennessee, Indiana, but that's what's happening. People are moving from a less free place to a more free place.
And the interesting thing, too, is this is beyond just people retiring and saying, okay, I'm done with the Chicago winters. I want to go to the Sun Belt, or I want to go to Florida. This is people where they're pulling their kids out of school. These are not easy decisions for people to make, to pull up the roots they have dropped, whether it's an employment situation, kids in school, they have friends and family, and they're saying even all those kind of psychic considerations, in addition to financial considerations, I can't stay here anymore. I look across the board in Indiana and I reduce my cost of living by a third or more. I'm crazy to stay here. It's just year after year after year. At a certain point, this becomes a trend, and a trend that has its basis in the policy decisions being made because it's the same policy decisions generating the same outmigration.
Right, and what we really look like is we look like Michigan when they were really having the economic meltdown in terms of people leaving the state. The number of people leaving Illinois these years looks very similar to Michigan during their worst years. And that actually proves that this is not a retirement story, because Michigan was, like Illinois, losing about 100,000 people per year to other states on net. Since they've done economic reforms, that number is down to 20, 30,000 per year. So you really are talking about, in Michigan, you're talking about people, you're losing the segment of population that is retiring, and you're not losing your job so much anymore. Whereas in Illinois, I mean, the retirement is looking like a minority reason to be leaving. The jobs are a big reason to be leaving Illinois.
Right. We're like the Israelites fleeing the Pharaoh.